I used to think night shifts were peaceful. That was the lie I told myself when I took the job. Better pay, fewer people, less noise. I was 23, broke, and trying to save enough to move out of my cousin's place. The job was simple on paper: overnight security at a small distribution warehouse on the edge of town. No cameras inside, just motion sensors on the doors, a radio, a flashlight, and a logbook I had to fill every hour. The place sat alone, about a kilometer off the main road. A long gravel driveway, tall fence, one warehouse building, one security booth by the gate. My shift ran from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. It was the middle of the rainy season, July. Heavy clouds every night. The kind of darkness that felt thick, like it stuck to your skin. Rain would come and go without warning, sometimes hard, sometimes just a wet whisper on the roof. That night started like every other. I signed in at 7:55 p.m. The day guard handed me the radio and the keys. We exchanged a few tired jokes. He warned me about the generator acting up again. Then he drove off, his headlights shrinking down the gravel road until they disappeared completely. After that, it was just me in the building. I locked the gate, settled into the booth, and wrote my first entry in the logbook. 8 p.m. All clear. Around 9:30, the rain started. Not loud, just steady. It tapped on the metal roof and made the darkness feel closer. I scrolled through my phone, drank instant coffee from a plastic flask, and waited for the hours to crawl by. At exactly 10 p.m., I did my first patrol. Routine mattered. That's what my supervisor drilled into me. Same path, same order, same checks. You don't rush it. You don't skip anything. I unlocked the gate between the booth and the warehouse yard, walked the perimeter fence, checked the padlocks on the loading bay doors, counted them out of habit. 1, 2, 3, 4. Everything was normal, but when I got back to the booth, something small felt off. My logbook was open. I always closed it. I stood there for a few seconds, staring at it like it might explain itself. The pages hadn't moved, no writing added, just open, right where I'd left it an hour earlier. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe the wind, maybe I forgot. That was the first lie of the night. By midnight, the rain had stopped. The air felt heavy and warm. No breeze, no insects, just quiet, too quiet. At 12:17 a.m., the radio crackled. Not a voice, just static, sharp and sudden. I picked it up. "Control?" I said. Nothing. The static faded, and the radio went dead silent again. I tapped it, checked the battery. It was fine. I wrote it down anyway. 12:17 a.m., radio interference. At 1 a.m., I did my second patrol. That's when I noticed the footprint. It was right near the loading bay. In the mud by the door, one clear print. Deep, fresh, too fresh. It wasn't mine. I knew my boots. This was wider, longer, and whoever made it had been standing there for a while. The edges were clean, not smudged by rain. There were no other prints, just one. I stood there longer than I should have. Flashlight trained on it, heart ticking faster with every second. The fence was intact. The locks were untouched. No alarms had gone off. So how did someone get in? I took a picture with my phone, then another just in case. Then I backed away slowly, like the ground might move if I turned my back on it. Back in the booth, I locked the door and wrote everything down in detail. The time, the location, the size of the print. My handwriting was shaking. At 2:30 a.m., the generator cut out. The lights went off all at once. The warehouse yard dropped into complete darkness. No hum, no glow, just the sound of my own breathing. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped outside. The rain had started again, heavier this time. The beam cut through the falling water, but it felt useless, like trying to see through a wall. That's when I heard it. Footsteps, slow, wet, deliberate. They weren't close, but they were inside the fence. I froze. The footsteps stopped. I waited, counted my breaths. 1, 2, 3. Then they started again. Closer this time. I didn't shout. I didn't move. I just stood there listening, trying to figure out the direction. The sound circled the booth. Gravel crunching softly, mud shifting. Whoever it was knew I was there. The footsteps stopped right outside the door. I held my flashlight tight enough that my hand started to ache. A shadow passed in front of the small window. Just once, then nothing. No running, no gate opening, no sound of someone leaving. After a full minute, the generator kicked back on. Lights flooded the yard. The rain slowed. There was no one there. I checked the entire perimeter with the lights on. Fence untouched. Doors locked. No footprints this time. The mud near the booth was smooth, like it had never been stepped on. At 3 a.m., my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You missed a spot." That was all it said. I checked my patrol notes. I checked the map pinned to the booth wall. I had covered everything. Every corner. Every lock. My phone buzzed again. 3:17 a.m. No message. Just the time. Like a reminder. I didn't reply. I didn't move. At exactly 3:17 a.m., the motion sensor alarm went off at the far end of the warehouse. Red light flashing, sharp beep cutting through the night. That zone was empty storage. No equipment, no reason for movement. Protocol said I had to check it. I stood up, took one step toward the door. Then I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The booth door was already unlocked. I never unlocked it. I locked it behind me every time. Slowly, I stepped outside. The rain had stopped again. The yard was still. Too still. As I walked toward the alarm zone, I noticed small things that didn't belong. My footprints going out, but not coming back. A smear of mud on the wall at shoulder height. The faint smell of sweat in the air, sharp and human. The alarm stopped on its own before I reached the spot. When I got there, the sensor panel was open. Someone had opened it. Inside, scratched into the metal with something sharp, were 2 words. Last round. I didn't finish the patrol. I didn't wait for morning. I locked myself in the booth and stayed there until the day guard arrived at 6:02 a.m., late for the first time ever. When I told him what happened, he laughed it off, said the sensors were old, said pranksters sometimes tried to scare new guards. But when he went to sign the logbook, he stopped. There was an entry written in neat, careful handwriting between my 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. logs. 3:17 a.m. All clear. It wasn't my handwriting. I quit that job the same day. Sometimes late at night, my phone still lights up with no message. Just the time. 3:17 a.m. I took the night shift because it paid extra and nobody wanted it. That was the honest reason. I just turned 26. I was saving for driving school, working 2 jobs and sleeping whenever I could. The toll booth job was supposed to be quiet. Sit, collect fees, log plate numbers, call control if anything went wrong. My booth was the last one on the Eastern Highway, about 12 kilometers past the city lights. The road stretched straight for miles. No turns, no houses, just bush, broken asphalt, and the occasional long-distance truck cutting through the darkness. It was December, dry season. Harmattan dust hung in the air, dulling the moon and making everything look faded and gray. Nights were cold enough to sting your fingers, the kind of cold that crept under your clothes and stayed there. My shift ran from 9 p.m. to 5:30 a.m. The booth itself was small, concrete base, thick glass on 3 sides, a sliding window, a metal drawer for cash. Inside there was a desk, a radio phone connected to control, a ledger book, and a chair with one loose leg that rocked if you leaned too far back. On my first night, the supervisor walked me through everything. Most nights, he said, tapping the glass, nothing happens. If a vehicle stops too long, you call it in. If anyone approaches on foot, you call it in. If anything feels wrong, I call it in, I said. He nodded, then paused. And don't leave the booth. Ever. I laughed a little, thinking he was joking. He didn't smile. That night, traffic was light. a bus around 9:40, two trucks just after midnight, one private car whose driver avoided eye contact like I'd insulted him. Every time a vehicle passed, I logged the time and plate number. It became mechanical, almost soothing. By 1 a.m., the road was empty. No wind, no insects, just the low hum of the fluorescent light above me and the distant echo of trucks far down the highway. At 1:23 a.m., the radio phone rang. I picked it up immediately. "Control, this is East Booth," I said. Silence. Not static, not interference. Just nothing. I checked the line. Still connected. I hung up and wrote it down anyway. 1:23 a.m. Incoming call, no response. At 2 a.m., I noticed the dust. Harmattan dust coats everything. But this was different. It was thick on the outside ledge of the window, like someone had brushed their hand across it. There were finger marks, 5 of them, long, pressed hard. I leaned closer, heart picking up speed. The marks were on the outside of the glass, just below eye level. I hadn't seen anyone approach. The booth was elevated slightly. You'd hear footsteps on the concrete. You'd see a shadow. I wiped the inside of the glass by accident while leaning in. My fingerprints smudged easily. The ones outside didn't. They were already dry. At 2:17 a.m., a vehicle finally appeared. Headlights low, moving slowly, too slowly. It rolled up to the booth and stopped about 3 meters short of the barrier. The engine stayed on. I waited. Normally, drivers pulled right up to the window. The driver's door didn't open. I cleared my throat and spoke through the small speaker. "Sir, please move forward." Nothing. I leaned forward, trying to see inside. The windshield was dusty. The interior was dark. I couldn't see a face. Then the headlights turned off. The engine kept running. My skin prickled. I reached for the radio phone with my free hand. "Sir," I said again, louder this time, "please move forward." The car rolled forward just enough to stop directly in front of my window. The window on the driver's side slid down. There was no one in the driver's seat. I didn't realize I'd stopped breathing until my chest burned. The car was still running. The steering wheel was turning slightly, vibrating with the engine. The seat was pushed back, empty. No movement anywhere inside. I stared at it for what felt like minutes. Then the back door on the passenger side opened, slowly. Nothing came out. The door closed again. I slammed the radio phone button. "Control," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I have an unmanned vehicle at East Booth." Static crackled. Then a voice I didn't recognize answered. "Describe the driver." "There is no driver," I said. "The vehicle is empty." There was a pause, then the line went dead. The car's engine cut off. The headlights stayed off. The barrier lifted on its own. The car rolled forward, past the booth, into the darkness. I didn't log it. My hands were shaking too badly to write. At 3 a.m., I noticed something worse. My ledger book had a new entry, written in the same column I used, same pen. 2:41 a.m. Vehicle passed, no issues. That wasn't my handwriting. I flipped back through the pages. Another entry I didn't remember making. 1:58 a.m. All clear. My throat went dry. At 3:12 a.m., the radio phone rang again. This time I didn't answer right away. It rang longer than usual. 5 seconds. 10. I picked it up. "This is East Booth," I said. A man breathed on the other end. Slow. Deep. Like he was tired. Then he spoke. "You're sitting in my chair." I stood up so fast the chair tipped over. "What?" I said. "You're late," the man said. His voice sounded close. Too close. "You're supposed to check the road at 3. "I don't leave the booth," I said. "Who is this?" Silence, then, "Look at your window." I didn't want to. I did anyway. A face was inches from the glass, not pressed against it. Hovering. I saw eyes first. Wide, unblinking. The whites dull and dusty. The skin looked dry, cracked, like it hadn't felt water in a long time. His mouth moved. The glass muffled the sound, but I could read his lips. "Open it." I dropped the phone. When I looked back, the face was gone. At 3:30 a.m., Control finally called me. A different voice. My actual supervisor. "You okay?" he asked. "We've been trying to reach you." I told him everything. The car, the calls, the face. There was a long silence. Then he said carefully, "East booth doesn't take incoming calls." "What?" I said. "It's not wired for it," he said. "Only outgoing." My blood went cold. He cleared his throat. "And no one's been assigned there since last year." I laughed. I had to. "I'm sitting in it right now." Another pause. "We stopped staffing that booth after the incident," he said. "What incident?" "A car passed behind the booth, far too close. I heard it but didn't see it." My supervisor spoke again, quieter this time. "The last operator answered a call at 3:12 a.m., he said. He was found in the chair at morning shift, sitting upright, door locked from the inside. What happened to him?" "He never came back from break," my supervisor said. "I don't take breaks," I whispered. The radio phone rang again. I didn't answer. It rang until 3:17 a.m., then stopped. At 5:30 a.m., daylight crept in, pale and dusty. The morning crew arrived. They found me standing. I never sat back down. When they checked the ledger, there was one final entry, written at the bottom of the page. 3:12 a.m. Operator returned. Booth occupied. I don't work night shifts anymore. But sometimes when I drive that highway just before dawn, I see the booth light on, and someone sitting inside, waiting. By the time this happened, I already hated night shifts, but I needed the money and this job paid the most out of all of them. I was 28, exhausted in a way sleep didn't fix. I'd picked up a temporary contract as a night maintenance assistant at a private medical building. 6 floors, outpatient clinics during the day, empty at night except for security and whoever couldn't go home yet. The building sat behind a main road, about a 5-minute drive from the city center. During the day, it looked clean and modern. Glass front, white walls, security desk in the lobby. At night, it felt unfinished, like a place people weren't meant to see after dark. My shift ran from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. The job was simple. Check water pressure levels, inspect electrical panels, respond to maintenance tickets left by day staff. Most nights, nothing came up. You just walked the floors, signed the checklist, and waited for morning. It was late August. Rainy season again. Thunderstorms rolled in almost every night around 2 a.m., shaking the windows and messing with the power. The first 2 weeks were uneventful. Then there was the night the elevator stopped at a floor that didn't exist. It was a Thursday. I remember because I'd planned to quit the following Monday. I'd already lined up another job. I was just counting days. At 10:07 p.m., I signed in at the security desk. The guard on duty was an older man named Ibrahim. Quiet, serious. He checked his watch more than his phone. "You'll hear the thunder tonight," he said without looking up. "I always do," I replied. He nodded, then added, "If the elevator acts strange, use the stairs." I paused. "Strange how?" He looked at me then, held my gaze a second longer than necessary. "Just use the stairs," he repeated. I should have asked more. At 11 p.m., I started my first round. Floors 1 through 6, lights on timers, clinics empty, doors locked. The smell of disinfectant hung in the air, sharp and clean. My boots echoed too loudly in the hallways. Everything was normal until floor 4. The hallway lights flickered when I stepped out. Not unusual, storm coming, old wiring, but one door at the far end was slightly open. Room 4B. That door was always locked. I stood there, staring at the thin black gap, listening. No voices, no movement, just the low hum of the building. I pushed the door gently with my flashlight. It didn't open any farther. Something was blocking it from the inside. I logged it as door obstruction, non-urgent, and moved on. At 12:42 a.m., the first storm hit. Thunder cracked so loud the walls vibrated. The lights dimmed, then stabilized. Emergency power kicked in automatically. At 1:10 a.m., my radio buzzed. Maintenance channel. A ticket came through. Check water pressure, floor 7. I stared at the screen. There was no floor 7. I radioed security. Ibrahim, I got a ticket for floor 7. Silence. Ibrahim? I tried again. Static. Then his voice faint. Ignore it, he said. Ignore what? Another pause. That ticket, he said. It happens. What happens? I asked. But the radio went dead. At 1:28 a.m., the elevator doors opened on their own. I was standing in the lobby drinking water, waiting out the storm. The doors slid apart with a soft ding. Inside, the lights were on. The panel showed a number I'd never seen before. 7. I stepped closer. The elevator smelled wrong, not bad, just old, like damp fabric that never fully dried. I didn't step in. The doors stayed open. I waited for them to close. They didn't. At 1:31 a.m., my radio buzzed again. Same ticket. Water pressure. Floor 7. Urgent. My heart beat harder than it should have. I told myself it was a software glitch. Someone mislabeled a floor. Old buildings had weird quirks. I stepped into the elevator. The doors closed behind me. I didn't press anything. The elevator started moving anyway. It went up, slowly, too smoothly. The numbers changed. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then the display went blank. The elevator stopped. The doors opened. I wasn't on any floor I recognized. The hallway was longer than the others, narrower. The lights were dimmer, spaced too far apart. The walls were the same white, but stained in places, like they hadn't been cleaned in years. At the far end of the hallway, a sign hung crooked. Clinical storage, temporary. I stepped out. The elevator doors closed behind me. The sound echoed down the hallway and didn't come back. I checked my watch. 1:36 a.m. I walked forward slowly, boots scuffing the floor. The air felt heavier here, warmer. My skin prickled like I'd walked into a room with bad ventilation. Doors lined both sides of the hallway. None of them had labels, except one. A small printed paper taped to the door, edges curled. Water room, I opened it. Inside were pipes, gauges, old ones, rusted in places. Water dripped steadily into a floor drain. The pressure gauge needle shook violently. That part made sense. What didn't make sense was the chair in the corner. Plastic, cheap, facing the pipes. Someone had been sitting there. I knew because the floor around it was dry, except for a clear outline where feet had been. I reached for my radio. No signal. I adjusted the valve slowly. The shaking stopped. The dripping slowed. The moment I turned away from the pipes, I heard breathing. Not close. Behind me. In the hallway. Slow. Controlled. Like someone trying not to be heard. Ibrahim, I called out. No answer. I stepped into the hallway. The lights flickered. Every door along the hall was now open. Just a crack. All of them. I backed toward the elevator. The elevator wasn't there. Just a blank wall. The hallway seemed longer now. At the far end, a man stood under the last light. He wore maintenance coveralls, the same color as mine. His back was to me. I fixed it, I said, my voice shaking. The water pressure. He didn't turn around. You weren't scheduled, he said. His voice was calm, tired. I'm just covering tonight, I replied. I'll leave. You always say that, he said. He took one step forward. The lights behind him went out one by one. I ran. I didn't think. I didn't look back. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs shook. I burst through a door and stumbled into a stairwell. Concrete, cold, familiar. I ran down. 3 floors, 4. I pushed through the door into the lobby. The elevator dinged behind me. I didn't turn around. I slammed the security desk bell until Ibrahim appeared. He looked at my face and went pale. You went up, he said quietly. There is no floor 7, I said. There is no floor 7. He nodded slowly. That's why it isn't on the schedule. What is it? I asked. He shook his head. It's what happens when people stay too long. At 6:05 a.m., the morning staff arrived. I handed in my badge. I never went back. Weeks later, I checked the building directory online. It listed 6 floors, but in the archived evacuation plan, PDF, dated 10 years earlier, there was a faint crossed-out line between 6 and the roof. 7. Temporary use. Sometimes when I'm awake late and it's raining, I swear I hear an elevator ding in my apartment building, and for just a second, I'm afraid to check which floor it stopped on.